I don't know why it has to be so complicated though.
Technology to all of this.
So what's on there now? It's just, well,
Right now, Samira's still setting it up. Right, and it is the small bit of a problem now that we have more people on there. Can we maybe change the view again to speaker view maybe?
There we go.
Yeah. Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm sure you can see the screen, but we see you from about nose up. Can you point your camera down a little bit so? Yeah, there we go. We have a new computer here, which is wonderful because it didn't take an hour to boot up. However, it's set up a little differently, so, yes, now we can see you.
Know how to do that, and all that?
I don't.
Or if you want to register it.
A good start. Please, thanks. Everybody's nodding. Can you hear me all right? Being Peter, Leslie and Lisa, yes, perfect. Well, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. We will start with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge with respect that we are in the Robertson Huron Treaty Territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bowatting. Bowatting is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting, in particular, Lisa and Peter, who are joining us on Zoom. And Leslie, it's always great to see you. I have a bit of an announcement. I'm going to be very mean today. And if I'm not, Diane's going to be very mean today. Because when we looked at the film from the last meeting that we had, there was a lot of sidebar conversations going on. And that makes it very difficult for Leslie. It also makes it very difficult for people who are going back and looking at this, trying to follow the conversations. So if we could minimize sidebar conversations today, that would be great. The other thing which I forgot to mention at the last meeting is Dree has resigned from the committee. I don't think there was any particular reason, just work commitments or whatever.
I believe so.
That she just didn't feel she could attend on a regular basis with everything else going on, so she has resigned from the committee. Sorry, Derek, did you have a? No, you're good over there? Okay, that being the case, let's get started then. Let's look at the minutes of our last meeting, which was the January 21st meeting. Any questions, comments, errors, omissions, things people would like to add?
that was our minutes.
These are the minutes,
Um,
21st meeting, the January meeting.
it's just, it's not an addition, it's kind of something I wanted to, mention for something kind of in the future relating to what Jonathan's, demonstration was.
Okay,
So, would this be the right time to mention this, or?
well, you know what, why not?
Yeah, oh, okay.
Because we're not, there's, you know, it's actually new business, but that's okay, let's deal with it. And Jonathan had, just for everybody's memory, he had done the presentation on using Google Earth mapping. Correct?
Yeah.
Sorry, back to you, Carol.
Oh, okay, so, the mapping that Jonathan's doing. And then Transit's doing the mapping for the Blind Square event. It's the same type of system. That they use, okay? Now years ago, I don't know if anybody kind of remembers, they were thinking about this access. App. It never did go through, I don't think it's really working or anything. Where people would walk and they'd have a fob in their hands and would change the lights, or it would tell you about construction. as you're
I
walking?
remember discussing that, yeah.
You still remember that? Okay. So, with the Blind Square event app, when you're walking, it's telling you where the bus stops are, if there's a garbage can, you know, like that kind of stuff. Now with Jonathan's stuff, he's putting his little dots in there where it might be something different in whatever area it is. Well, what they could do is, put the two of them on top of each other. So when Transit does their Blind Square event app, it'll not only tell us where the bus stops are. It would tell us the inconsistencies. As we're walking with other things that Jonathan might be putting into his map.
That's excellent. I think Jonathan was really focusing on things that need to be improved. Like where there's a hazard.
But with people with vision loss, we're walking, we don't know there's a hazard there.
Yeah,
But if Jonathan's putting it in there. And it's put over top of the Blind Square event app. And we're walking, not only is it telling us where the bus stop is, but it's gonna tell us where that. Problem area is or whatever, that's where we're getting.
excellent point. Maybe Dan, we could just show that, Samir, we could just show that in the minutes. And is there any chance you could just send an email to Jonathan and whoever it is at Transit that's dealing with the store out there?
And that won't be until June, I think, the Blind Square for the new road say. But if they're gonna be doing the new routes,
Now's the time to add that.
yeah,
That's a really good point. Thank you.
Question for Carol, if we to Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Eric.
Can you send me the link to the Lions Square?
it's Blind Square event, make sure you put the word event.
Okay,
Because Blind Square is separate,
okay,
okay, Blind Square event is Blind Square, but with the add-ons and. The event one is free, the Blind Square one you gotta pay for,
okay,
okay, so yeah, I can send it to you.
perfect.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay. That's all.
Any other comments or questions related to the minutes?
Would you entertain a motion to accept?
Yes, we will. Craig, would you
I'd
move?
like to make that move.
Thank you, and Eric is gonna second that.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, perfect. Thank you very much. Unanimous. Moving right along, we're up to our declaration of conflict of interest, of which we don't have many, but we have had some. Does anybody have a declaration of a conflict of interest? Remember that. That would mean there is something on the agenda that either you or a member of your immediate family would stand to gain some benefit from as a result of any recommendations. Okay. And I think at this point, the answer to that is probably no. So seeing no conflicts of interest, we're gonna move on. We do have a considerable amount of material on today's agenda relating to barrier removal funding decision tools. And I have to give Diane full credit for this. I think, you know, this is just legal moment, Diane, I'm not gonna jump in here too long, but. By the way, for those of you who are sitting at home wondering why we're all wearing coats, we have no heat. So we're wearing coats. So Lisa, maybe you could increase the heat budget in the upcoming budget, that would be great, but anyways. It's a problem, they're working on it. But for some time. As long as I can remember, council has approved funds for this committee. To do barrier removals. And to assist with the cost of doing barrier removals, and over many years. We kind of fell into a routine, I think, that we were following, where we put money towards one thing and then money towards another thing, money towards. Pedestrian activated signals. Money towards, curb cuts, putting in twisties. Twisted, for the life, I can't remember. But it wasn't really a very formalized process. So now we have a formalized process, which I think will improve our ability to report back to council. Thank you very much for the money, here's what we did with it. And it also gives us the ability to rank priorities of that. So we can encourage our biggest barriers to be removed first. Having said that, Diane has done a fabulous job on all of this. Would you like to would you like to go through this with the committee?
Sure. So right off the hop, the tools that I sent to the committee are the first draft. And I'm happy to have the committee's feedback on any part of it. The second part is that I fully recognize that as we begin to use these tools, we may need to tweak them because there might be something that doesn't quite fit the way that I envisioned this. So open to all of that. So there are 3 pieces here. The first one is a barrier removal funding application, and this is an application for staff. So for City of Sault Ste. Marie to say, we've identified a barrier, or the committee has identified a barrier, or someone from the community has identified a barrier. And we would like to work towards removing it. And it would be really helpful if we had $5,000, or if we had $20,000, or perhaps in the biggest extreme, that we have the whole $85,000 barrier removal budget for a year. So no limitations on the funds, but up to our entire budget amount. So that's the first piece, and it is for city barrier removal projects. And I'll go through them in a little bit more detail, but as an overview. We also needed a way to assess projects against each other so that we could then have some kind of a rank tool or decision-making tool that both gave those assessors on the committee some guidance and also some accountability, so that we have something that we can, if someone comes back to us and says, why wasn't my project approved? We can say, based on this criteria or these criteria, this is where it ranked. So there is the assessment guide. And then the last one is very much one that I'm already revising, but it is a single page or a single document. It may end up being more than 1 page, so that we can see at a glance where during an application year, it won't be this year. This year will be a transition year because we've already missed the budget deliberation process for 2026. That was worked on starting in August of this past year. So for 2027, it will be slightly different process than it is this year. This year will be on a first come, first served basis. If staff has some projects and they want to apply, they're welcome to apply. If we get 2 or 3 together, that makes it even easier for us to use our tools and assess appropriately. For the 2027 budget year, I'm saying, and it did say on the application, that it would be a deadline of May 1st for the AAC to be able to assess the projects and rank them according to priority and funding. And then we would have all of the projects on one sheet to show where did they all rank. So that we'll go with the highest ranking project first, and if there's funds left for the next highest ranking project, and we'll keep going until, basically our budget has been used. So that's the high level idea of all of this. The other thing that I think about is committee time for assessing these applications. Right.
Chairman, through you to Diane, and we still have the prerogative of council on very little budget years when we do not use all of our allotment. Do we still we still allow to roll over funds?
Yes.
I think it does roll over to a reserve account, but I believe there's a max on the reserve account.
A max of 80,000 on the reserve.
And if it goes over that, then that money is just goes back to the.
So we have the ability to reserve some funds, but not a lot.
Yes,
Correct.
That's not normal for city subdivisions to have even that ability is a courtesy. At council forum. I think we were the only one that had that prerogative for years.
And those funds are also available to us though.
yes,
Yes.
they are
You know,
also
when
available.
council, approves, I believe it's $85,000 every year. And then we have up to an additional $80,000 in reserves that are also there.
Because there have been some years we did, no one brought projects to our attention, but
COVID, for example.
yeah, there was.
Yeah.
That period, everything basically halted. Speaking. Good, so that project still exists, I just want to clear that, as well,
That's.
because it was. It is an oddity, courtesy they extend to us, which we deeply appreciate, which I don't believe any other company has, so that's why I asked it still enforced.
Yes, thank you, Craig, good question. So keeping in mind that, it will take some time to go through applications, especially if we have more than 10. I don't know how many applications we'll have, it's hard to say, but that it will take some time to go through that. I don't think it's reasonable for us to try to go through applications at a regular AAC meeting. So my suggestion is, at this point, the site plan subcommittee has been a very active and very involved group. And of course, anyone on the committee is welcome to join the site plan subcommittee
It's just.
meetings.
So,
Yeah, and that will be a working group, so that will be a working meeting that'll be organized. So if anyone's interested in being part of that process, we can certainly include you in that email process. And we can do a working meeting to assess. And then once we have them all ranked, we can bring them back to the AAC.
And Lisa, you have a question for us.
Yeah, I would be willing to assist with that.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
I love volunteers.
I know you had me to that list as well,
And great.
project. Mr. Chairman, further question, further clarification. Now, we have traditionally allotted a certain amount of funds for depressed curbs on an annual basis. Will we continue to do that under this new process?
It could be done, but it would be one of all of the projects that would be ranked together, same as we've had an annual over the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years for the accessible pedestrian signals. So we have, and in the last plan, we also had a considerable amount of funding for the parks and playgrounds and benches allotment. All of those are eligible, but it would be through an application process and they would all be weighed against each other. And I think that's the only fair way to look at it, even.
Because that's not, we don't have it on. For lack of a phrase, a fail safe to the fund, so that the council knew the funding was allocated funds were put to good public purpose, that's.
Yeah.
And they were, so use the term fail safe project, we knew they would happen on an annual basis and they could a modest assist.
Yes, and to be clear as well, as much as staff may come to us with a funding request, this committee can also come forward with projects as well, such as the civic address number signs that Carol brought forward towards whatever September, October this past year. So the committee can come forward with projects as well and say, hey, I really think we need to look at this project.
Or if we get advice from an outside group, sound.
Yes. Yes. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the process as I see it. And I really, the intent was to put the decision-making process back in the hands of the committee, so that the committee feels that their voice and their impact is making a difference. So I'll just very quickly go through the individual documents. So for the berry removal funding application. I started with a little bit of background on it, open to changes. And then I wanted the application to be a very simple and small thing rather than a large funding application like applying to Trillium grant. I didn't want it to be an onerous process for staff.
Trillium application, for those who don't know, is equivalent of the phone book.
Just about. So I wanted it to be fairly simple. So there are, some high level information on this about what is the application review process. So the first one is that I will review the application to make sure we've got all the information that we need. Once it's passed that first hurdle, then it will go in the pile to meet with the committee to decide, to go through and assess everything. And then from there, it'll come to the AAC as a whole for agreement on, does our assessment criteria make sense? Is everyone in agreement? So, just looking further on. On the back page of the assessment, and I'll apologize to Carol and anyone else who's looking at the meeting materials online. There is a table. Now I've set up the table so that it has accessible criteria in it, but I know that Carol, your voiceover on your phone does not read it appropriately. So I apologize to Carol and anyone else using that technology. It is to be determined how we can do these kinds of things better. And I'm working on changing this grid so that it is in a much more universal process. But on the back page, it takes all of the criteria from the funding assessment guide and puts it onto a 1-page per project. So you'll have your application, and on the very back page will be the final assessment of it. Any questions on the funding application?
I didn't have a comment, when they are doing sidewalk when they're doing sidewalk renovations, like.
Thanks for doing the garbage, Josh.
We have, like, we went through process and we put Northern Avenue on the list till 2027. But what if it stays at the 600 mark and we put it back on the docket for funding for budget? How would that, like?
Would our budget, are you saying, how would that work with our budget, you mean?
Yeah,
When this is a very large amount that goes so far above our budget?
yeah, how, like, cause council already said no. So we're gonna try again next year, but if it's the same price, they could say no to us again,
You're right about that, Derek.
so.
If as far as our funding goes, if that were something that were to make a difference, to make council say, oh, and if we have this additional $85,000, that might make it more palatable. Then that's up to this committee as far as this process goes. However, that being said, as far as the Northern Ave and Great Northern Ave projects go, there is absolutely nothing stopping any residents who live in the area and have concerns about that to bring that issue forward to their city councillor. I think that's an important part of the process. I think it's important for council to know how many people it affects, so that perhaps they will see the situation a little differently than they have in the past.
Okay, because we can put it back on the docket. By the time it gets to budget deliberations, we're back to square one.
Yep. Yep, and that is a council, a council decision at that point. And then, if there hasn't been enough advocacy to council, then the following year, there has to be more. But it has to be initiated from the residents who live in the area and that are affected by it.
I'm asking because.
They're good questions, Derek.
Here's what's.
So that's a major project. Beyond the scope of this funding, but
And I was thinking of getting to have 1 year and have another year. Also, we'll. Tweak a money so that we're not.
Yes, yes, and that may well be an option as well. So that will be. We'll see where this ends up going.
And so if we can put it on the like list for when we do the audits. Of the sidewalks. Or projects,
Mhm.
that's the first one I will do.
You put that at the top of the list, right?
Yeah.
There you
Can I comment on that?
go.
Go ahead.
So when the time comes, I've talked to a few people in Derek's building that have approached me, either in that neighborhood or on the community bus. And they've expressed the exact same issues that Derek has. So when the time comes, I'm wondering if maybe Derek should put something up in his building. If people wanted to sign it, because yeah, I've had quite a few people approach me with it, and they're from his building.
it's not just what you're confirming is it's not just personal.
So no, I when we do this list, I want that to be on. Whatever.
Right, the problem, there is a small problem with having that on our application. Is that our funding only goes to 85,000.
Okay,
So as far as that project goes, I would hope that it's not $85,000 that would make or break that project going forward with council. I suspect it probably wouldn't be. But as a show of support, it is still a good idea if the committee decides that's the priority. Excuse me. It would demonstrate to council that it is a priority.
and I think it is, I do not want to start that, it shouldn't be since then I don't get. People around that. I just don't want to leave that, so who's the one? Next year, again, we can at least.
If I may, I think, Peter, you feel free to correct me on this, Lisa. What happened in part last year was decisions on capital budgets had already been made. And this was kind of added right at the last minute. And everybody was already knew what the major projects were, how they were gonna spend their money, what it was gonna cost. Council was basically in agreement. Staff had previously made recommendations, but council had accepted, we had consultants working on those projects at that. So our timing was very bad. I did get a feeling from the senior staff though, that they were very supportive of this in doing something to correct it. And Derek, I think that's fair to say, maybe it doesn't all happen in 1 year, we do bits, maybe it takes a couple of years, we do bits and pieces, they do budgets for sidewalk repairs. But I think it's worth a second shot on this or a third shot, if that's what it takes. But I wouldn't be overly discouraged by what happened last year, I thought the timing was. And either Lisa or Peter, if you want to correct me, that's fine too.
Yeah, I don't know that we can bring it back. I would have to check with Rachel. Because it was a motion that was, well, I don't know, would it be considered, I'd have to find out if it would be considered a motion or if it was a budget request. So, right, Peter, like, because if it's considered a motion, then
It
I
was a,
ca-
budget requests that didn't make it to council's budget requests, like it was kind of quashed at the staff level, so then it became a motion. We continue to work behind the scenes, with folks, so we're still working on this one. It hasn't been forgotten. I hope that we don't have to go back with another request. But I think there's not like if it comes down to it, fair to say, Diane and myself will make this request every year until we're told not to make it. And I don't know that it's going to come to that. We're working behind the scenes.
Thank you, Peter. And then, I can find out from Rachel Tazinski if what it's considered and if there are roadblocks when I can bring the motion back again. So, because there has to be a time, there's a time when something gets defeated before you can bring it back again for consideration, so.
But in a perfect world, forgive me, Lisa, but I think in a perfect world, what we really want your staff to bring forward as part of their recommendations. And then the backup position is if it's not there, then you can look at it. Sorry, Ray, you had something to say?
Just one. Mr. Townsend, tweet something, Mr. Chair. Understanding the city's budget cycle. Again, we're getting into the administrative introduction here. Making a request at the appropriate time, as you described, the problem with the particular repair, having fallen out of the rhythm of the city, or lack of a better phrase. I don't know what the correct protocol word would be, but understanding when it would be appropriate to make, that's a major budgetary request.
Yeah, and I think what we heard from Peter is that they're considering it now.
Understood. I just want to know what's the, for our outsider committee, without sort of back channel access, what's the correct time to make a request of that sort so it falls into the consideration period? Is there a set time? Like we're setting with these applications, we want to begin on a specific date so they can be reviewed and added to our project. What's the city's process? I'm looking for that date so I know when to, if we come up with something, okay, we missed the deadline this year, we'll put that in abeyance till next year, kind of thing.
Yeah, we can find out what that date is. The capital budget's approved quite a bit in advance.
That's
the regular.
That's the phraseology, sorry, I was looking for, the capital expenditure budget.
Yeah.
Because that might come up as we run into requests. Our 85,000 sizable amount of money, but it is not a capital request budget. Size amount of money.
It's about 600,000.
Exactly. As we sit here, so there are projects that we could identify. I have a thought about transitioning city buses to electric buses. That's the capital request.
Okay, is everybody good with where we are at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, back to you.
I'm good with that. Okay, thank you. So then moving on to the assessment guide. So I'm not going to go through the information in detail, but I am going to read off the assessment criteria. And I tried to rank the assessment criteria based on the first one should probably be the most important one. It may not be the same case throughout the list, but the first criteria was safety concerns. And this is being rated on a rating of 1 to 5. And as I read through it just before the meeting, I thought to myself, perhaps it should be simplified down to a 1 to 3 scale. So 1 being low, 2 meaning moderate, and 3 meaning high. So I'm happy to have the committee's feedback on that and any other things. Derek?
Just sort of big notes with Diane and Diane reads me the minutes with her phone. And then she often finds, oh wait, I should change it, so that's what's happening is Diane's reading it saying to 5 or 3.
That's exactly right. As I was reading it to Derek, I realized it was more complicated. It was probably more complicated than it needed to be, and simpler would be better, I think, in this case.
So
But that'll be up to the committee to tell me and give me the feedback on that. So the first one is about safety
Sorry,
concerns.
can I ask a question?
Yes.
So are we going with the 5 ranking now, or are we gonna, and then evaluate a few and see how it's going, or are you suggesting maybe we should go to the 3 now?
My suggestion would be 3, but how does the committee feel about that?
Well, as someone who spent the weekend doing public health champion evaluations for numerous people who were nominated. I will always go with the lower number. So I would go with the 3, either it's not a big deal, it's an average deal, or it's a really big deal.
So 3 it
Other
is,
thoughts?
Okay, great.
3 it is, let's,
Thanks, 3, Derek,
3,
Carol,
Um,
3, okay.
And Lisa's good with 3 too, alright.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think sometimes simpler is better. So the first one is safety concerns. So always, if there is a barrier out there that has safety concerns, that should always, in my mind, be one of the biggest assessment criteria. After that, the second criteria was frequency of use, meaning how often does a space get used? Is it the John Rhodes Community Center? How often is it used by people with disabilities? As opposed to, say, the Civic Center, which probably has a lower frequency of use by people with disabilities. So just considering things like that, how often do people with disabilities access or use a space that has this barrier?
like I was saying to Diane to you yesterday, is that the Gallup Community Center, for especially the GFL and all of the events, there's views on the weekend, views on Wednesday night. They're into Renaissance, so you really need for various events, and during the summer when happens not happening, concerts come through, and so, and those concerts are sold out. Like, sold out crowd, so.
Yes.
We're getting the money that we paid out for the field out, we're getting back, hopefully. Be taken seriously.
Yeah, so you're right, Derek, you know, something, a barrier that needs to be removed at the GFL should have a higher ranking than, say, something at City Hall, or perhaps something at the garbage dump, or something at I'm not sure what else, but that's a good example, Derek, thank you. Then we move on to the practicality and feasibility. So this really talks about how appropriate and achievable the proposed solution is. There may be a better heading for this, something that at a glance explains it a little bit better, but how practical is it to remove the barrier? And again, that'll be a 1 to 3 being a very low practicality, moderate practicality, or a high practicality or feasibility that the barrier effectively. Number 4 is the cost effectiveness. As we just talked about with the Great Northern Road intersection and Northern Ave intersection, cost effectiveness is part of the decision-making process. Can it be done with existing funding? How likely is it to get done if it's over the 85,000 and there is no additional funds, or perhaps it's the entire $85,000, but something else ranks a little differently. So just one of the criteria that's in there as well is the cost effectiveness. And a note on that, I divided the funds based on a 5 rank scale, with the initial one being very low cost, under $500, so that might be something like a grab bar and a bath, right?
one question for this cost effectiveness highlight. Could we also include their ability to leverage other funds? I'm thinking of some of the parks and rec renovations done in partnership with other groups.
Certainly, I expect that when staff are coming to us needing some funds for, by the way, a brand new barrier removal project, not replacing existing infrastructure that's worn out or need repair. It must be a brand new identified barrier. It doesn't have to be brand newly identified, but it must be a brand new barrier. And I would expect that the department will have a contribution in there as well. So, yes.
But I just wanna, we wanna make that explicit. As opposed to this.
I could include that on the application.
I think that would be, especially, I think that would be best. I understand that city staff know that, but again, for right, for full transparency, you know, for example, we're part of a service group. Again, Parks and Rec updates, chair, we've done that before, the Rotary has helped with certain of the swing sets, et cetera, some of the.
No,
Yes.
I think that's a really good catch.
I think so too, but I think it's also covered on the application, under the application form, number 6, funding summary. It asks for the total cost of the project and the requested amount and other funding contributions if applicable. So we get a sense of how important the project is and if the department is able to contribute funding to it. So I think that question will already be answered.
One of the spot.
Sorry, sometimes if it's written down, it might not be written down, okay? But then we all talk about it, so we put this in as well, so Diane, we doing all the proposals, doing the writing, but if we want to have a different way of saying it or losing it, so.
It's one of the it's caught.
Yeah. Yeah, very good.
As I see,
Excellent question, right?
as I see that as healthy.
Sorry, for the interpreter, could you repeat the question, please? I missed that. I'm sorry.
The question, Leslie, I'll rephrase,
Thank you.
had to do, Craig asked if we could implicitly request if staff have or if departments have a contribution to the project, as well as a request from the accessibility committee for funds. And the reply was that the application does include the total cost of the project, the request from accessibility, and any other funding, perhaps from a grant or other sources.
Perfect. Thank you. And did Derek add something after that as well?
I said that we might have different opinions on the situation, that's what we go through it all. Every month.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then the next criteria is the inclusiveness and the innovation. So thinking, we all know, anyone who's been around in accessibility for a while, there's basic accessibility, there's good accessibility, and then there's wow accessibility. We're looking for the wow factor. So if something is kind of like the Blind Square Event app, that was a game changer for people with vision loss. So that had a really high inclusiveness and innovation component to it. So that, I would assume, would end up with a 5 or a 3, as we say. And something that just meets building code, like perhaps it's a stall in an already existing bathroom, as opposed to a brand new universal washroom with an adult change table. So that's the kinds of things that I envision belonging in that in that category. And then that's where I ended it. And then just before sending out to the committee, I thought there were a couple of other things that should be included in here. And they are the last three, and it's basically a yes, no score. So number 6 is alignment with the city's accessibility plan, the accessibility policies, or the facility and parks accessibility reviews. If one of the projects that's being proposed to us has already been identified in one of those 3 places, that would get a score of yes, because it has been identified by the committee. If it's not one of those, it would get a 0. So this would end up being a 3 or a 0. And I want that to have a noticeable difference, so that a difference of 1 for yes, 0 for no isn't much to change a score, but I wanted them to be enough that it could nudge an application in a different direction. Same thing with preventive maintenance. So maintenance is part of the accessibility standards, and appropriate maintenance, preventive maintenance is really important, so that the features that are in our environment that provide accessible features are reliably used. So for example, adult change tables, say here at the John Roads, or the ceiling track lift here at the roads. If there is no preventive maintenance plan in place, it's quite possible someone will get here, no one will know that it's broken. And then the whole basis of further travel out is null and void. Or even worse, someone is using the ceiling track lift and gets stuck in the air. And then we have to call a fire department to have someone extricated from the ceiling track lift. So there's a huge safety risk. So preventive maintenance is very important. So a yes scoring a 3, a no scoring a 0. And then I wanted to leave room for something we didn't think of. This might become an actual criteria on our application moving forward, once we've gone through a few applications. But I wanted to leave room, is there anything else about a particular project that should be assessed on something else, but we haven't thought of? So again, that would be a yes, a score of 3, or no, a score of 0.
Right, or Derek, go ahead.
I just want to see that all websites should have those things, so this simply in terms of reading. If we're reading an article, if I want to see some sound button that plays the audio. For somebody to read.
For what in particular, Derek?
For like emails, when Susie has got all the news, they
Right,
got their own feedback system.
right, they do, you can listen to the article.
Yeah. So we're gonna make sure that our features maybe in our web page, so that people, if they don't have that option, can get that option.
Okay, we can look into that and we can add that onto our facility assessment.
Okay,
It makes it far easier for people who have difficulty reading to be able to access the information, right, Derek?
yeah,
Talk about like a website?
Yes, that's what there is technology available to use for anything digital on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer. However, sometimes connecting the accessibility features on a computer to the program you're using isn't really easy, right, Derek? That's what I'm hearing from you, okay?
And the reader tool, I think you're talking about, right?
Yes,
It is actually different than a screen reader for people with visual aids. It's not the same as VoiceOver.
No, I haven't
Totally
used it, what does it sound like, Carol?
You can get it on Suit Today. And it'll pop up and it has a rewind, a play and a fast forward button. All you do is just press it and it'll read it all to you.
Yes, yes, and that's what I mean, it's simpler, more intuitive, especially for people who have trouble reading or have print disabilities, to connect existing software on your device to a program. It's much more simple and much more intuitive, so I get it, Tara.
So we're basically right now trying to use my Google and also a reader as well, because it's select. And we into they don't do websites, they don't do personal emails.
I don't think we can have something installed in your email, Derek, I don't think that's a practical thing, but anything that is city owned and operated, we can look at.
But I think in the accessibility, no, I'm not positive, okay? But the accessibility settings in your iPhone, if you go down, there's different settings for different disabilities, and I think maybe there might be something in there that,
I think Derek would really benefit from joining your technology group if that's still
actually,
progress.
actually, I'm in the process of it. And it'll be at the United Way, we've got the come time we want. I'm just waiting for CMIP to get a couple of students or people that are willing to be trained. Just basic training to come in, assist. I just got on the phone with them yesterday. So,
Excellent, Carol,
yeah,
can we hear more about that? We're gonna have time at the end of the
Okay.
meeting, which is not that far from now.
okay, sounds good,
And that would be great for you to share that info.
okay, perfect.
Okay,
Sorry, were you done?
I'm done with the assessment guide, and as I said, whether you think of it right now or whether you think that an hour from now or next week, send me feedback on these tools. The last tool that I had, and again, this is one that I described to Carol, but I wanted it to be a visual reference showing red meaning. And I know red and green is a terrible accessibility thing. I totally understand that for folks who may be colorblind, but it was also represented with information. So red squares would be a project that would be less likely to be approved. And green squares, which were in the bottom left, red squares top right. So the green would be more likely to be approved, so it would probably have a higher rating score and a higher probability of being approved. And I wanted a single page to bring back to the accessibility committee to say that the site plan subcommittee, which has been expanded to review the applications, have evaluated them, and this is the tool at a glance. You can see all of the projects and where they rate. So I've already started revising this, Carol, and our folks at home, so this tool will look different in the future. So this is what would actually come back to the committee, is this hopefully 1-pager or 2-pager with a summary of the information after the applications.
Go ahead.
I just wondered if you know what more thing in that.
No, that's it. That is the only items on the agenda outside of Carol talking about her group.
Okay, can I just go for a break and then come back?
Sure.
Yes, why don't we do that? Why, we're 3 o'clock right now. Leslie, if you wanna take a break and we'll do, say, 15 minutes? Does that give you enough time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll be back at 10 after 3 then. Is that right? Yeah, maybe 12 after 3.
Close enough.
And we'll just finish up with Carol. It'll be an information piece, but it'll be fairly informal.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh.
Hi Leslie. We're just gonna wrap things up here a little bit. But before we do,
One point. Or a question for the committee.
sure,
About this.
go right ahead. We're still on accessible advisory committee barrier removal funding applications.
Yes, I have one question for the group, because Derek, you said something that made me think about something differently. So my thoughts were that when we go through funding assessment guide and we're scoring the projects based on those criteria, I envisioned that each member would do their own application. If we need some assistance, we can certainly do that, but based on your lived experience, based on your experience with other people with disabilities, how would you rank that? And then we would put them all together and then summarize. However, Derek, as you said, I got the impression that you meant that we would come to a consensus on what the scoring would be.
Yeah.
So, what's people's thoughts on that then?
Can I volunteer? Cause I have done a couple of these things. And I find I've done it both ways. Okay, where you kind of sort out what you're thinking on this as an advance, and then go to a meeting and I listen to other people and change my opinion.
Okay,
So you have to be able to change your opinion when you hear other people, regardless of whether you've done this in advance or not. And as getting to the consensus thing, that's where you want to be.
okay.
You wanna get to that consensus thing. Diana, is your question, do we wanna do it in advance separately, or do we just all wanna show up at the chat?
Well, you brought another facet to it. Do we want to do it in advance individually, in our own time, with our own thoughts? Come with your assessment or your whatever, however you've done this, you've got some ideas in mind how this is gonna be scored. And then we start talking through it.
I think to be useful, whether people score everything or not, you have to have an opportunity to give some thoughts to it before we get to the meeting. Because then you have a place to start from.
Okay.
And then I listen to other people talk and I might be changing my opinion, that's okay.
I think everybody has to have an open mind, and I will say this once again, for the housing time, I am not here just for my disability, I'm here for all this. So when you're making a check mark on whatever, don't think about one disability, think about everybody's.
100%, Carol. Yes. Okay, I will update the tools as presented, based on what I think our discussion has been. And somewhere in the instructions, there will be something that says, committee members are expected to spend some time prior to the site plan or prior to the assessment meeting to assess on their own. And then I'm prepared at the meeting to talk about it and come to consensus on the application.
So would it be like a checklist you give all of us?
Well, yes, and that's what on the back, I'll do it differently so that it works for you, Carol. But
Because I could actually do. You get a list. With a square, I can actually put a check on it.
okay, maybe that's what I'll do is I've already made the funding application a fillable form. I don't know how well that would have even read for you. But I can also change the form at the back so that you can choose, maybe it'll be a drop down 1 to 3. You can choose 1 to 3 on safety concerns. You can choose 1 to 3 on frequency of use. That's I can do that. I'll check with you first before I expect you to use the tool to make sure it's something that will work for you. And Derek, I'll work with you ahead of time to read over the materials. And then we can discuss things and then you can tell me how you would like to score things.
Okay,
Craig, if you'd like, I can speak with you as well over the phone so that you have some time to review the materials.
You're present.
Yes,
Now, just so we know if something is coming down the pipe, I have one percolating in my mind. I would like to think, to get at the appropriate time. So there's an update. I'm sure. Is it
it's
changing?
your outside voice,
Oh,
Craig.
it's, I've got a project, I have a barrier removal proposal in mind. That I will bring to the committee at the appropriate time to use this format. I think it does meet the criteria as discussed, but I'm gonna run it by you to make sure we have not, I've not gone completely off the rails. It's not maintenance, it's a change. On existing barrier accessibility information in the GFL.
All right,
Signage therein is not sufficient in my respect will be.
Okay.
We talked about something, sort of, survey, or,
No,
yeah, these guys lost me here now.
yeah, Craig brought up a potential barrier removal project to add to our list to assess.
Oh, okay, so I'm still on that,
No,
as
um,
if you were to do it like a whole,
an online poll.
oh. Who is it that puts the polls on Sioux today for questions about?
Is that a city poll?
Yeah.
no, so today that's a city.
Oh, Sioux poll,
They do it themselves.
Do it themselves,
I can find out what their tool is.
because I can probably. Like, I must have got lost in the conversation here, so.
No, Carol, my apologies, I took it in a slightly different direction because I was trying to be. Working on the specifics of applying criteria, and I had,
Well, it's just that it lost me, I.
it's something that I noticed when I was in the arena the last time.
I'm just really glad we've gone from 5 criteria choices to 3 criteria choices. It's gonna make life easier for us.
I think so.
Yeah, because people get, it's easier. It is. It's just easier to do. We've only got 3 choices.
Yes. So I'll make these updates as I understand them and I'll do a little bit of research and I'll have an update for the committee at the next meeting. On
March 18th, which is the 3rd Wednesday of next month.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's our next AAC, but.
Yes, March 18th.
But you may have it in your calendar as March 18th. And just to kind of wrap up our barrier removal, our barrier removal thing here for Ben. Just to clarify, eligible expenses could be technology.
It could be anything that is removing a barrier. It could be technology, it could be software. It could be a tool that the corporation uses. It could be bricks and mortar. It could be a piece of equipment. It could be a renovation to a facility. It could be in addition to a facility such as the accessible seating that we're working on here for the John Rose. It could be anything that removes barriers.
So in summary, yeah, could be anything that's barrier removal related, there's no exceptions. How it goes through the evaluation category is to be determined. Perfect.
Should I,
Go ahead, Carol.
so, does everybody know how it went on Tuesday on the February 2nd at the Active Living Center?
No,
No. Would you like to let people know?
It was, well, it's just, I was telling Derek on the Airbus, so he couldn't make it. And it was successful,
And what was on February 2nd, Carol?
it was for people with hearing loss at the Active Living Center. They were using what's the name of that device, a
VRI.
VRI. So I think there was, what, about 20 people?
Yeah, maybe 15.
15? That's people with hearing loss and their companions. Okay, I can't see the way, so I'm just assuming, yeah, okay. So, then they tested it out at the front desk. And, I think everybody was happy with it. I think it was a, positive.
I agree,
Feedback?
Carol, I agree, so. Although we've called it the VRI, it's actually video remote interpreting. So it's using ASL interpreters on an iPad so that people who are deaf and use ASL or LSQ. I'm not even going to pronounce the French version of LSQ. Who use those languages to communicate. And it's intended for brief customer service interactions. So for instance, I use this example all the time. You go to the Civic Center and you have a question about your bill, but you are deaf and use ASL to communicate. You go to reception, there's a sign that shows our community partner, Canadian Hearing Services, that provides VRI. You point to it. They will pull out the iPad, they will connect to a video remote interpreter, and then the interpreter will interpret on the student. We all know that a live ASL interpreter is always best. Those of us without hearing loss, who are not deaf, discovered during COVID that Zoom meetings were a wonderful technology. But the communication was not the same as in person. So it's the same thing for people who use ASL to communicate. It is a means of communication. And it is sometimes very funny to watch Leslie interpret some of how we say something is not very good. It's very interesting to see. So live is best. But we have in reality 2 ASL interpreters in Sault Ste. Marie, and they can't be everywhere at the same time. So this is a decent alternative using the VRI on the iPad. For longer meetings or longer interactions, there is a ASL interpreter that is available. So a live interpreter, it may take longer to get an available time with a meeting coordinated. And there is also the equivalent of VRI, but it is intended for a longer period of time and it's not based on a minute rate. It's based on a longer time frame. So we're trying very hard to be more inclusive. And let's hope that the deaf community is able to access and use VRI to the Bay Street Active Living Center and at the Northern Community Center Active Living Center.
City Hall as well, Diane?
And City Hall as well.
Part time, so because the city nerve center, we will have to make accommodations there. They have to the importance of all that. Continue. I would say to, I've been on the phone with the tax department a number of times myself. I will appreciate that someone does use the phone for that or. You have to talk to these people. When you have to talk to them, you need to talk to them. It's not optional.
Yes.
But you want your property seized, not big on the. Not really enough, being some facetious.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Carol, for bringing that up.
Now. Do you think we should adjourn the meeting and then I'm curious as to hear Carol's comments on the technical learning group? This is all news to me. Is that part of our meeting or is that outside of it?
It would really fall outside of our meeting. However, anyone listening at home may have an interest. Because it does have to do with people with disabilities. It has nothing to do with the city or a city service. But what Carol is going to speak to us about is a little bit of a public service announcement. So if the committee's okay with continuing, for sake of time, we've got lots of time. go ahead with the public service.
Okay, so in Sault Ste. Marie, Algoma district, there's approximately 607 people with vision loss at all different stages. But fortunately, there's not a lot of services here. So, I've been around vision loss community my whole life. Because my mom had vision loss, she was totally blind, and it runs deep in my family. But when CNMP and VLR split up, there's a lot of services that are lacking here in Sault Ste. Marie. So, couple months back, I know we've got the CCB group, Canadian Council of the Blind, which is, it's been around for years. Excellent, excellent. I belong to it. I've been going there for a few years. But there's also another type of group that is different. And I felt that was needed here in Sault Ste. Marie, so I started it up. And it's called the Algoma After Sight Group. I think it's 3 months now I've been running it. It's once a month. It's the second Friday of every month. It's at the new library from 1 to 3. I picked the library because it is fully accessible. There's no stairs, no nothing, it's bright, easy to get in. And the library is giving us a room because I have a connection with the CNIB to get this going. So we get the room free. So it's a place for people with vision loss and their companions can come, have coffee, snacks. Don't have to pay nothing, it's all free. CNIB works the bill. And we chit chat and we talk and we help each other, assist each other, bring up different issues, whatever. But one of the main things is with people with vision loss, because we don't have services here in town, it's really hard for them to know how to use their devices, okay? So I would say out of the 100 people that I personally know with vision loss here in town, not one of them know how to use devices, such as their phone, okay? And their phone meaning the screen reader on the phone. If it's an iPhone, it is considered voiceover. If it's Android, it's TalkBack. I am not experienced with an Android, but I am experienced with an iPhone. Okay. So I have arranged for once every 3 months with the library to have the room an extra day to run tech classes so that people with vision loss can learn how to use their iPhones. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that. And I've tried different ways and it just didn't work. Just didn't work, okay? So, and there are a few other things that, you know, that need to be worked on here in Sault Ste. Marie for people with vision loss. So myself, along with someone in different city, got together and we have discussed with, and I gave Diane her title, I can't remember it now. But anyway, so she connected me with the director of Ontario for CNIB and he called me yesterday. And this is what I'll be working on. With the aid of CNIB now, okay? So the United Way here in Sault Ste. Marie will give me a room free of charge, okay? For as long as I need it. I'm just waiting for a connect, I've got the name, I'm just waiting for them to connect with me. And then somebody from CNIB and separate to connect the 3 of us. Okay, and the director of CNIB Ontario is going to arrange for some people here in Sault Ste. Marie, local. Whether it's students or friends of the family or whoever, and they will give those people a fast shortcut type instructions on how to use the iPhone with accessibility so that they can come to my group and they can teach it. While CNIB has somebody on the big screen, okay? So this way here, I'm not the only one in the room, it's just too hard, right? So, the other two ways that I tried, it just didn't work, and, because we don't do PowerPoints, we don't do PowerPoints, and most of the people are not experienced, okay? So it's gonna be a step-by-step. Teaching, okay, and it'll be for probably, we haven't decided yet, maybe it's 4 days straight. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, okay, 4 days straight. Every day for 4 days you come, by the time those 4 days are done, you'll have the basics on how to use your phone. But we need somebody in person, okay? So that's what I'm working on right now with the director to find some people in Sault Ste. Marie that would be willing to take a crash course. They will train them. CNIB will train them, okay, so that they can come to our group. Sit down in the group, people with vision loss, and guide them through it. And hopefully one for each person. Now this room holds about 15 people, okay? So, right now my group's up to about 27, okay? So, if you know anybody with vision loss and they want to learn how to use their phones, they can get a hold of me, okay? Whether it be through anybody here or whatever, I don't have posters written up yet, but they're in the process. So it'll be at the United Way downtown. It's not as accessible as the library would be, but at the library, I can only have that extra day once every 3 months, but at the United Way, they're willing to work with us every day we need. Okay, but parking in the back, I think, parking at gardens if they're allowed. Gotta go down the hallway, go up the elevator. I know the building, but I haven't met with Laura yet at the United. I just got a call yesterday. I'm working on this now. So if anybody you know of Diane, once everything is, hopefully within the next month and a half, it should be all set in stone that we can, get working. That's excellent.
Yes.
2 questions.
Yeah,
Excellent idea. Have you contacted, we're going to use technological. We talked to the university's computer program or Psychology's computer program.
they'll be talking to Sioux College.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just knew that there are people,
Yeah, we've already.
I'm not sure, but there are. Having had a few low-tech idiot moments when I was a student, there were always computer literate folks at the university were very helpful to confused colleague, they sort of went, great, let me sort this out for you. And that happened more times than I can count. So there are people there with the talent for explaining.
Yeah, and that's what we had talked about in the director,
That's what I,
because students. Younger crowd really likes to learn things new, right? They're really fast on it because they grew up with it.
yeah, that's,
You know,
as we said earlier, this sort of technology is more in their wheelhouse.
yeah. Do you know? Now I'm talking years ago, so I don't, is it Rocky or something at college?
I was more familiar with the students at Algoma University, Carl.
Oh, I don't, yeah, okay.
Students at the help desk bailed me out
My niece works, right?
more times than I can count.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. That's.
Well. I think it's. Oh, and Leslie, is she still on it?
Yeah, there's Leslie.
Oh, okay, so Leslie, I do have some people that belong to the group that are deafblind also, okay? And I talked to Giselle last week, and she is more than welcome to bring anybody she wants, okay, to our meetings, once a month, second Friday of every month at the new library. And then we'll work things from there for the tech, because the tech is a separate day and it won't be at the library, but it's connected to the same group.
All good, thanks very much.
I think Derek, did you have a question?
I just, am wondering, when I have an Android phone. I don't have an Apple and I can't go to an Apple, it's like. But have you decided, have you figured out, whether we can talk to Best Buy or Staples or to be a partner, and if anybody wants to be part of this room? Do you think of anything from Best Buy or at a discounted price so that?
Does,
I don't, yeah, I think it's a general question and I don't know that that's really realistic for part of this group.
Okay.
However, there is the Tech for Good program that you may be able to get a hold of. They used to a few years ago assist with the cost of equipment,
Okay,
but that's something you'd have to explore with your helper, Derek.
okay, you just send it to them and then I will.
Actually, Carol, there might be a question in there for you. I think the question is, do you have to have an Apple phone? Or
Okay.
Can you get by with an Android?
yeah, okay, I only know the Apple phone. Okay, but it is for people with an Android also. Okay, so cause I won't be teaching the Android. Okay,
But somebody else will be
but
using that.
that's why we need these students or whoever, okay, to get that training before the class starts, so they can come in and sit with the people with either an Android or an iPhone, okay? The other thing too is, and I don't think it's so for everybody, it might be just CNIB clients. Okay, there is the Phone It Forward program. Which I wanted to mention to the city. Okay, so what does the city do with their old phones? If they get rid of them, I would like to put a request in to start our own Phone It Forward program here in Sault Ste. Marie for people with disabilities.
That's a good question. I have no idea what the city does to old folks.
Okay. Can someone find out?
I can do that, Carl.
Do you need a motion to that effect, Chair, or would we just leave that in Diane's table?
No, let's just leave that in Diane's hand. That's really a little bit outside the scope of the committee.
Okay.
We just try to help
Yeah.
as best we can.
It was a thought, Chair. It's not the wildest one that ever crossed the doors of this committee, I can assure you.
Well, it's just the phones, when people go and get their new phone, they either turn it in. Exchange it, or they keep it and throw it out. Or it's just sitting in a drawer, you might as well donate it,
Well,
so
what
put it
happens?
forward, so that. You know, if Derek needs a new phone, or I need a new phone, or whoever needs a new phone, it's Sault Ste. Marie. You get it. Or accessibility purposes.
Even Staples will. Put it in a recycling program for you.
And it's,
So,
yeah,
I'm gonna suggest we close the meeting. Thank you, Carol, for sharing that. We still have 15 minutes that we can continue to chat. But I'm not sure, I think we should close up the meeting. What do you think, Chair?
I think that's a fine idea. Just stressing again is that our next meeting is on the 18th, not on the 11th. See everybody on Wednesday, March the 18th. And Leslie, thanks so much once again. Really appreciate having you here. That's fantastic. Thanks very, very much. Goodbye.
You're welcome. Before,
Oh,
has
hold on.
the recording stopped?
No, the recording is still going.
If we can stop it. Because this meeting is over.
Well, but I think Leslie has a message that she'd like to share more privately.
Oh, no, well, I have a quick question. But it is regards to accessibility but I just have, it's just a general